The number one position battle to watch for a starting job at Titans training camp next week is at inside linebacker. We're going to talk through the 8 guys in this position room today and discuss who starts, who makes the team, and who gets cut. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. Joining me as always, Justin Melo and Justin. Here we are again, another positional preview, less than a week until Titans training camp. How is it going?
Doing well. Excited to talk about the linebackers today. In my opinion, no position group has overgone more change, in the room than this position has. Mike Borgonzi came in and just took a blowtorch to the room. I mean, before we get into the players who are actually here, some of the ones who are no longer here, right? Borgonzi comes in and within the hour, I think, trades Kenneth Murray to the Dallas Cowboys. And then some of the other change, doesn't re-sign Jerome Baker, Chance Campbell, Jack Gibbons, Luke Gifford. There's been so much change in this room. He claimed 3 linebackers off waivers. We'll talk about near the end of this episode, some of the lower end guys. But the fact that he claims 3 of them off waivers kind of speaks to, I think, his overall displeasure of the room as he inherited it. So a lot of change at linebacker. Excited to go through all 8 guys.
Yeah, same. The 8 guys in the room are Cody Barton, entering his 7th season free agent signing this year for the Titans. Cedric Gray, former draft pick last year, entering his 2nd season. James Williams, same story, drafted 2 rounds later than Cedric Gray. Anthony Orji, one of those players who was claimed off of waivers. Otis Reese IV, now entering his 3rd season as a former undrafted free agent signed by the Titans. David Gbenda, an undrafted free agent this year, rookie out of Texas. Curtis Jacobs, who is entering his 2nd season and already on his 3rd team, who was one of the guys claimed off waivers. And the final guy they claimed this offseason is someone most Titans fans have probably never heard of, Amari Burney, who also enters his 3rd season. So we're going to talk through this group today, and we're going to start with sort of who we expect to win the starting job, because I think that is, again, this is the biggest battle in training camp. Now, obviously, the receivers are going to be battling, especially for who starts and what kind of rotational roles, but we kind of know the veterans are going to sort of probably be deferred to start, at least to open the season. And then that's pretty much the only other real battle. I mean, Gunnar Helm versus Chig Okonkwo, some people might consider a battle. I think that's Chig's battle to lose, and this season at least, Chig will still be the tight end 1. But the LB2 position, that 2nd starting inside linebacker, this is the number 1 most hotly contested battle in training camp. And like I said, probably the only starting spot that's really just up for grabs for anyone to claim. Cody Barton will start at 1 spot. That much we know for sure. He's by far the best and most accomplished linebacker on the team. He's the only guy that really profiles as a guaranteed starter. And then you have everyone else in the mix for this role. But I think we can narrow this battle down, Justin, and we'll get to some dark horses in a second. But we can really narrow this battle down to the 2 guys the Titans drafted last year who were drafted to be future starters or at least future key role players in Cedric Gray and James Williams. So let's talk through each of those guys. But first, let's give a little background on Cody Barton, because Cody Barton comes to the Titans. I think he brings a little bit of excitement at the position. He was originally drafted by the Seahawks, played there for 4 years, and has signed back-to-back 1-year deals with Washington and Denver before the Titans gave him a 3-year contract this offseason. He has 38 starts over the past 3 seasons. Before that, he didn't really start a lot of games. And in that time, 363 total tackles, 5 interceptions, 12 pass breakups, a forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries. He's all over the field. He's all around the ball. And the most promising thing about Cody Barton is he is a great tackler. Last year, PFF graded him 84.8 in his tackling grade. That was 4th best amongst 189 linebackers last season. So I'm excited for Cody Barton. I think he brings a lot of vocal leadership. We've already seen some of that, and I can't wait to see him take the reins as the LB1 in this Titans defense.
Yeah, I think I've said it a couple times, but when Mike Borgonzi, when he got the job and before free agency, he talked about the type of players Titans were looking for. He talked about veteran leadership, experience, culture, tone setters, things of that nature. Cody Barton checked all those boxes, and that's why the Titans pursued him rather aggressively in the sense of where it's a 3-year deal. It's not the 1-year deals he was signing prior to this. And I think you've already seen some of that. Like in training camp, he was really vocal. OTAs, I should say. OTAs in mini camp, he was very vocal, picked off Cam Ward twice in practice. There was like a clip the social media team put out of him mic'd up, and you kind of got to see the personality and what drew Mike Borgonzi to him, in my opinion. He's far and away the best linebacker in this room, at least entering camp. But I will say, just to pump the brakes a little, like if there are 64 starting linebackers in the NFL, I know you can't really boil it down to that because there are injuries, yada, yada, but 64 starting linebackers, let's call it, maybe 70. Some teams still run 4-3s as their base D. He's probably like the 35th best linebacker in the NFL, maybe the 40th. I don't think he's way down there, but he's not a top 20, top 25 linebacker either. So, he's going to give them league average play, maybe slightly above average. He does go into camp, as we mentioned, into the season, really, he'll go into as the best, most accomplished linebacker. I would say the other guys, whoever wins that second job, probably has more upside than him. But that's also because they're an unknown commodity, right? Like words like upside and potential get you fired. They're dangerous words all the time. Whereas what Cody Barton is, and you feel pretty good about him.
Yeah, I do think what he is in the sense that it's nice to see him get those 2 interceptions in, the OTA practices, even if Cam Ward might have thrown one of them to him on purpose. We still don't know for sure what happened there. But I do think like his strength is definitely in run defense, the run game overall. Like his overall PFF grade last year, 66.8, ranked 77th out of 189 linebackers. But his run defense grade was 28th out of 189 linebackers, 79.9. His coverage grade, 56.0, which was 111th out of 189. So there's a clear split there where he is very good in run defense, struggles a bit more in coverage. And I think when it comes to this LB2 job, now granted, this might be a player that doesn't play every down. They might be a first and second down, or maybe only a first down and sometimes second down level player. But I do think it's important for the Titans to find a linebacker who can cover. And maybe it's none of these guys. And the fact that they've already claimed 3 off of waivers since March should tell you that they may be looking to claim somebody at this position at the end of training camp if somebody promising gets cut somewhere else. But between Cedric Gray and James Williams, who are, in my mind and your mind, I think every Titans fan's mind, the leading dogs to go win this LB2 job. And granted, they will be in a competition with more than just each other. And we'll talk about the rest of that group in a second. But one of these guys, I think, whoever wins this job, I think they have to be better in coverage. They probably have to be the best coverage linebacker on the Titans roster just because the Titans need a linebacker who can cover. And granted, 25 NFL teams need a linebacker who can cover right now as we enter the season, but the Titans are one of them. And I don't know if between Cedric Gray and James Williams, like I know who I think is going to win the job, but I'm curious who you think. And I have reasons for my why, and I wonder what you think and why.
Well, I'll start by saying this. The sad reality that we have to acknowledge is, the Titans need one of these guys to be pretty good in coverage, but it doesn't mean they will be, right? Yeah. Like just because the Titans needed better quarterback play last year, right? They didn't get it. You're not always going to get what you want or what you need. Sometimes you get what you get, right? And I think there's a decent chance, to be honest with you, that Cody Barton plays the majority reps in coverage this year, just because he's a veteran, experienced guy. Again, I think I don't think he's terrible at it. I don't think he's particularly good at it. If you've watched the tape, there's a little upside there. There's high football IQ. So I think the IQ, the football IQ, the zone coverage maybe is a bit better than the man coverage because when he's let down in coverage, it's typically the athleticism that lets him down. It's not so much the smarts. He knows where to be and when to be there. Can his body get him there on time all the time? No, probably not, right? But shifting to the second part of that question, the important aspect of this episode, it's a toss-up, in all honesty. Like, Cedric Gray and James Williams both played so little last year. Like, James Williams played 110, I think it was, defensive
111.
snaps. 100, and Cedric Gray played, 50-ish?
48.
You got it in front of you. 48, I knew I was right on. About that's such a small sample size. Anthony Orji, who we'll get to later, played more defensive snaps last year than either of them. Not in Tennessee, it happened elsewhere, but played more than they did. So this is such a toss-up. And Brian Callahan said during OTAs and minicamp, and he's so right. I love listening to Brian Callahan talk. He's such a great speaker at the podium. Like, training camp is going to decide this position because it's the hardest position, in my opinion, to assess when you don't have pads on. Like, it's really hard to watch this position. Like, OTAs and minicamp are so much fun. It's not fun to watch linebackers. It's impossible, in all honesty. So once they put the pads on, that's when the battle's going to ramp up. That's when we'll start appropriately assessing Cedric Gray and James Williams. I will answer your question at the end. I just wanted to be long-winded first. There's so much growth that can occur for a linebacker from year 1 to year 2. And then when you look at these two guys specifically, Cedric Gray, who had the injury almost all season long, missed the beginning of the year, came back so late in the game, was almost like a wasted year for him, in all honesty. And then James Williams being a safety turned linebacker, going through that position change, having to establish himself at linebacker. The circumstances surrounding both of those guys, what I just mentioned, so much growth can occur from year 1 to year 2, as is, right? But that just adds to it what their situations were. So it's hard to predict what these guys are going to look like, because you hope that so much growth has occurred for both of them. I do tend to lean towards James Williams, and I don't know. I think that's where you might be going as well. I think there was a bit more upside flash throughout the year last year. You love the athleticism as a converted safety. You saw some of that sideline to sideline ability when you watched him, albeit in a small sample size last year. I'll also say that I loved Cedric Gray coming out of North Carolina. And there's a reason he got drafted 2 or 3 rounds earlier than James Williams did. So I love Cedric Gray. Everyone liked Cedric Gray more than James Williams throughout the pre-draft process. The whole NFL did. That's why they got drafted where they did. So I'm not calling quits on Gray. Yes, it was such a disappointing year. I like what James Williams showed me a bit more because of the circumstances surrounding Cedric Gray's injury. But, I mean, you and I were over the moon with the pick of Cedric Gray when they made it, right? Like, he was so good, so productive at North Carolina. I hope he still got that in him, and it's way too early to say he doesn't. And that's why I'm guilty of it too. I think everyone's leaning James Williams probably, but we'll see.
Yeah, you're right. By the way, James Williams, 7th round pick last year.
Yeah, I thought you misspoke earlier.
I did. I had James Williams.
And it was like it was like one of the last 10 picks of the draft. I think. Yeah. Like, was it 252?
242.
242. Sorry. So last 15 picks of the draft.
I had him as a 6th round pick in my brain for some reason because he played better than a 7th round pick last year. Maybe that's why Justin.
Look at him covering his ass. It was him and then Jalen Harrell they took in the 7th round.
Yes, that's right. Cedric Gray last season when he did play, again, only 48 snaps, extremely small sample sizes on defense. That doesn't include special teams. 36.8 PFF grade, 181 out of 189.
Lost out there a lot. He in terms of misdirection and stuff, run fits, it was rough. And the Titans' run D got worse as it went on, and it wasn't coincidence. It was when those guys entered the lineup.
45.0 coverage grade, 151 out of 189, so also not good there. And then with James Williams, I mean, he wasn't great by any stretch according to Pro Football Focus, but he was a hell of a lot better than Cedric Gray. 51.9 overall grade, 148th out of 189, 51.5 coverage grade, 131 out of 189. That was actually the highest coverage grade of almost any Titans linebacker. There was one guy who didn't play a lot who had a better PFF coverage grade. And PFF stats aren't the end all be all. PFF grades, I'm using them to help our listeners and our viewers have some context, not to say that this guy's definitively going to win the job because he had a higher PFF grade or anything like that.
I do think in this case it's fairly accurate. I'll just add that quickly, whereas I do think James Williams was better. But again, we're talking about 48 snaps, 110 snaps, like...
It matches the eye test, but I agree. Like James Williams, there's something about the instinctive way he gets to the ball carrier that reminds me a little bit of David Long, and he's a bigger guy than David Long. But just the way that it's like ball snapped, he reads it and he's going. I feel like that showed up a lot in the limited amount of snaps he played last year. He did finish with 26 tackles. He jumped on a loose ball, and had a fumble recovery, which is nice. Appeared in 13 games last year with 1 start. Cedric Gray appeared in 7 games last year, did not start. Cedric Gray, 22 tackles. So I don't really know what to make of this competition other than what we saw last year, which was James Williams look promising, even if he did have those rookie moments. And Cedric Gray didn't look like he really belonged on the field last year, and that's just me being honest. And that doesn't mean that
the injury, though, right? Like
the injury, right? That doesn't mean that he can't.
Different.
That doesn't mean that he can't show some improvement over this offseason with a healthy chance to like understand the defense and come in training camp and really compete for this job. I think he will be right in the mix. But I also think James Williams' background as a safety, and now there is a reason that he's been moved to linebacker and isn't staying at safety, but gives him a little bit of a leg up in terms of the awareness and like how to drop into coverage and how to man up on bigger players, running backs or tight ends. Like, I just feel like that background's going to help him win this competition. Doesn't mean he's going to have a longer career or be better, but right now he might be more ready to be a coverage backer. And so I do think it's going to be James Williams starting next to Cody Barton. But we do have a couple dark horses, Justin, that we need to talk about. And real quick, a reminder to check out the link in the description to the Sinkers 40th birthday jamboree. Only $10 to get in. Comes with 2 free drinks. Saturday, August 9th, 5:30 p.m. Don't miss it. Link in the description. The other 2 guys in the mix, Justin, in my opinion, there are 2 dark horses here. It's Anthony Orji, who, again, was claimed off waivers going into his second season after technically second season, after being a 2023 UDFA to the Saints. He only has 1 accrued season, even though he was a 2023 UDFA. He was waived in May, and the next day, the Titans claimed him. He appeared in all 16 games last season and started 2. I'll run through his PFF grades in a sec. And the other guy in the mix to me is Otis Reese, the third-year undrafted free agent linebacker to the Titans, who has flashed every time that he's been given an opportunity, but hasn't necessarily been given a lot of opportunity. And this spring wasn't in the mix for this competition because he's been dealing with some sort of injury that's kept him out of practice. So that's a huge deal. He did start 2 games for Tennessee last year, 13 games, and he's the one best coverage grade, according to PFF, of any Titans linebacker, which was still 108th out of 189.
He was a safety too, if I recall correctly, at Ole Miss. So another converted athlete, right? I think we're good enough to run through rapid fire on both guys. I mean, you sound like you want to talk about Orji a bit more. What I will say, some of the things you said, claimed off waivers by Borgonzi this offseason, 146 snaps last year for the New Orleans Saints. So what I alluded to earlier, played more snaps than James Williams or Cedric Gray last year. Occasionally flashed a violent downhill trigger, as a run defender. Our pal James Foster did a fun breakdown on him on Twitter. I decided to turn that into an article on Titan Sized. I wrote a really fun article about Anthony Orji. If you Google Titan Sized Anthony Orji, that article will come up for you and you can give it a read. A couple other things I found interesting about him. Spent a little time with Dave Ziegler, new Titans assistant general manager, so we think. Ziegler was hired by the Saints last year as like a consultant throughout the pre-draft process and then stayed on with them throughout the season. Now, those things tend to mean less than you think they do when you hear the word consultant, but, certainly he came across Anthony Orji in some capacity last year in New Orleans. I thought that was interesting that the Titans claimed him, and I'm going to prove that it probably means something as we get to some of the other guys in this room. Played locally at Vanderbilt, by the way. Anthony Orji did. Some good pre-draft testing numbers when he came out in 2023. A little undersized, 6'1", 230, but he leaped a 10.2 broad jump and a 38.5-inch vertical, and he ran a 4.5 340. So some decent testing numbers on him, and occasionally some good tape last year. You and I talked a little about Otis Reese. Why wasn't he in the mix? Well, we eventually learned that he was dealing with an injury throughout the OTAs and minicamp, wasn't really a participant physically. I got the sense Titans were maybe a little disappointed with that. They were probably hoping he was healthy and could get into the mix. I'll say this about Otis Reese. If you're a listener of the show, you know how much Graver and I like him. Not lost a lot of ground. Remember what I said earlier about what Brian Callahan said? We'll assess these linebackers when the pads come on. As long as Otis Reese is healthy when the pads come on, I don't see why he doesn't have an opportunity to get himself back into this mix. He has shown some upside, occasionally 2 years with the Titans, couple starts, really good in brief stints. I think he's got a chance if he's healthy.
And he was around the ball a lot last year. He had an interception, 17 tackles, a tackle for loss, a pass breakup. Like, he was productive when he was on the field. Anthony Orji, 55.2 PFF grade last year, 141 out of 189 players, only 20 total tackles appearing in all 16 games. So not like he was particularly productive, but I do think the tape that James Foster put together, that cut up, his testing numbers coming out, the fact that the Titans claimed him one day after he was waived in May, and that connection you mentioned with Dave Ziegler, like, I do think he's a dark horse, but I would list him as the fourth most likely to win this job, with Otis Reese third, Cedric Gray second, and James Williams the most likely. Yeah. And then there's three more linebackers in the room that we should quickly cover. David Gbenda.
Take it from here? Can I take it from here? Because I'll run.
Well, hang on. I want to talk David Gbenda, and then I'll let you do Curtis Jacobs and Amari Burney, because David Benda's my guy. He's my guy from Texas. David Gbenda spent 6 seasons with the Longhorns. The first year was kind of a redshirt year. But last year, 61 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, a sack, an interception, a forced fumble. He's another one of these guys that's sort of just always around the ball. He was, like, in some ways, the heart and soul of this Texas Longhorns defense last year that went to the college football playoff semifinal in back-to-back seasons with him as the starting inside linebacker. So I do think that he brings, obviously, maturity as a 6-year college player. He's not like a 21-year-old. That also could be seen as a negative in the sense that you could say, like, he's more developed, so maybe he doesn't have as much room to grow. He is a bit undersized as well, but he has a hell of a motor. I think if nothing else, he's going to be a great special teams player. And I think he's a guy who's not competing to start at inside linebacker, but he's competing for one of those last few jobs in the room, like to make the team. And I think he has somewhat of a decent chance to make the team because he can be a core special teams player. And whichever one of these linebackers doesn't win the starting job, or 2 or 3 of them that don't win the starting jobs, are going to have to be special teams players. So that's my take on David Gbenda. I love that the Titans went and signed him as a Longhorn fan, like that's cool for me, but I don't know how realistic it really is that he makes the team. He's definitely in the mix, though. You want to take Curtis Jacobs and Amari Burney here?
Yeah, I'll say about Gbenda quickly. He's in the mix. Why did he go undrafted? Well, he's undersized, right? 5'11", I think 235-ish. 6-year prospect, so he's a bit older. That is a knock against him as well. And he didn't play a lot in coverage at Texas, so I think there's a big projection question mark there. But I agree, instinctive, trigger, athletic, potential special teamer. But I also think, for example, if James Williams doesn't win the job, he's a great special teamer.
True.
I think Otis Reese is a really good special teamer, or has been. So it's a 50-50 on Gbenda. We'll see. I'll take the others. Curtis Jacobs, signed as a UDFA by Kansas City last season. Who was in Kansas City last year, Graver? New Titans GM Mike Borgonzi was his assistant GM, certainly played a role in that. So he claims him off waivers this past March. He's one of the bigger linebackers in this room, actually. Bigger, 6'1", 245. A lot of these other guys are in the 230s. He also had some good testing numbers. He leaped a 10.9 broad jump throughout the pre-draft process. Again, no coincidence here that I think there's a tie to Borgonzi. I talked about how Anthony Orji has a tie to Dave Ziegler. Well, the third one also has a tie to Dave Ziegler. Amari Burney was drafted by Dave Ziegler in Las Vegas when he was the GM of the Raiders in 2023. Once again, I don't think that's coincidence. So he's waived by them earlier this offseason. Borgonzi claims him as well. Ziegler was already here when that happened, probably gave him a thumbs up on him. 6'1", 233, Amari Burney. Again, similar size to a lot of these backers. Also, like Anthony Orji and Curtis Jacobs, who we talked about, some decent testing numbers on Amari Burney. 6'1", 233, ran a 4.5, 140, leaped a 10-foot flat broad jump. So all 3 linebackers claimed off waivers by the Titans this offseason. 2 of them had direct ties to Dave Ziegler. 1 of them had direct ties to Mike Borgonzi. And Mike Borgonzi makes the decision to claim all 3 of them. I don't believe in coincidences that large.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely where this came from. And it's clear, as you said at the top, that they're trying to overhaul this position and find some guys that can contribute. So let's project who they think they have found. Justin, we're going to start with proclaiming, I guess, our official projection is that the starters will be Cody Barton and James Williams. And then in your piece that I've referenced multiple times throughout this positional series, predicting the roster back in mid-June, you had 5 guys on the roster, with the other 3 being Cedric Gray, Anthony Orji, and my guy, David Gbenda. Has anything changed your mind, or do you still think those are the 5 and that the Titans keep 5?
Yeah, I like the number 5 because I think you've got some good special teams players in this room. As it changed, I mean, I pulled a mini surprise, leaving Otis Reese off that list, in all honesty. I like Otis Reese, so I hope he makes the team. I hope he makes it either ahead of Orji or Gbenda, but he's got to be healthy and he's got to earn it. Those last two spots for me, I mean, you could just flip a coin in all honesty, right? I think Barton, James Williams, like Cedric Gray would be a surprise cut candidate. I guess it's within the realm of possibility if he shows them nothing again or if he's hurt. But I think Gray, it's a little early to give up on him. Yeah, I'm going with 5, flip a coin for the 4th and 5th spots.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of going to predict that it's Otis Reese and Anthony Orji. Like, that feels the most likely to me, and it hurts because I love David Gbenda, but I feel like he's a big practice squad target if that is how it shakes out. But that's the official prediction, I think, is that 3 guys are making the roster, barring some crazy unforeseen Cedric Gray nonsense, and then 2 players, there's 2 spots left basically between these other 5 guys, and we have no idea how that's going to shake out. But if we had to predict today, which we do, because that's the point of this series, I'm predicting Anthony Orji, Otis Reese. Are you predicting a coin flip, or do you have what is in the article? Should I just go with that as your prediction?
I'd probably switch to Orji and Reese as well. But it's like, if Curtis Jacobs is the best special teamer, then he's, you know what I mean? Like, there's opportunity for all of them.
There certainly is. So we will keep an eye on this one very closely during training camp. Again, this is the biggest position battle for a starting role. Justin, we have one more positional preview to do before training camp kicks off, and that will be tomorrow. Looking at the quarterbacks, we saved the best for last. I think this linebacker one, I don't know how much you guys are all interested in the linebacker position as a whole, but because it's such a big roster battle, we saved it for second to last, and we saved our Cam Ward training camp preview, which is essentially what tomorrow's pod will be, with some minor discussions about Will Levis possibly being traded, for our last positional preview as we head into training camp next week. On Sunday night, by the way, I will be releasing a 25-minute narrated video talking about Cam Ward using VR. Can it make him the next Jaden Daniels? How much does VR really help quarterback development? I explored that topic, and I'm really excited to share this video with you guys. I put a lot of time and work into it. It's taken me weeks to get it finally ready for publishing, and so that'll be out Sunday night. So that's what's coming up for us, and then next week we will be talking training camp nonstop because we'll be in the thick of it by then. So thanks to everyone for tuning in. If you're still watching this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your thoughts in a comment below, predict who wins the inside linebacker 2 job. We want to see, taking like a group poll. Is that what it's called? I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I want everyone to give me your thoughts. With a straw poll. We're taking a straw poll on who's going to win based on what you guys think. So let us know in the comments below. Thanks again to Sinkers Beverages. Until next time, until tomorrow, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.